Hello. Eric, pray me in. So we've had a few talks up here. But as you know, when people get up here for the first time, they give their testimony, which I did. But I stopped at age 24. You only got half of it. Just to give a little recap, go back there. I was born in Souderton, Pennsylvania, son of Faye Irene and Clayton Fillmore. Great names. And two sisters, Laura and Joan, and one brother, Ken. And was raised in Souderton, Pennsylvania. I'll go the quick condensed version. Neglected child. Pretty much did whatever I wanted. Ran the streets as a kid. It was a small town, mostly Mennonite and Lutheran. Very white town. Started experimenting with drugs at the age of 9, hallucinogenics, mescaline. Went on a trip. My dad kind of was not really involved in what was going on in my day-to-day affairs, neither was my mom. My mom ran a daycare out of our house, so she was concerned about everybody else's children, not her own, because those are the children she was getting paid to watch. My dad led a double life. He is a 33rd degree Mason, involved in a satanic coven, and an elder in the Lutheran church as his cover. And there were other Satanists in the church that I grew up in. Very large Lutheran church with a lot of money. Just continued to run free, make my own rules. Never did homework. They just kept on passing me. I was given free reign by everybody, the school district, everybody. They're like, he's not stupid, but he won't. I wasn't disruptive. I just wouldn't do my homework. When I was given tests, I'd draw artwork on them and send them back, and they would keep on passing me with straight D minuses. They just wanted to get rid of me and keep on passing me on. Because if they didn't, my drunken mother would call up and give them an earful that they didn't want to hear, so they just didn't want the hassle. Push them along. Went to commercial arts school in high school. That's where I discovered how much fun huffing rubber cement was. And for 3 years of my life was addicted to inhalants, butane gas, freon gas, some of the most dangerous stuff out there. Used to have a gas mask with filters on it where I'd take 2 jars full of rubber cement, stick them on, gas myself. I had a buddy who would pull the mask off before I was dead. I don't know how I'm alive. When I was 18, I was at a party, Emerald Park Apartments, on downtown Souderton. And a friend of mine who was a bit younger, Jason Siegfried, he had been drinking straight whiskey and smoking crack since he was a youngster. His dad was a pagan. He showed up at the party, was playing with the loaded shotgun that my friend Chris's dad had in the apartment, and shot my friend Chris's head off in front of me by accident. I still remember that. That's when the drinking started. I remember that moment. That's one of those experiences that just doesn't leave you. You're talking to your friend, and he's literally as close as we're standing right now, and you hear that deafening sound right beside you, and your friend's standing in front of you like this with his head missing, and then hits the floor. The only thing I remember about that is that, and it being like an out-of-time sequence. I remember my friend Chris Berger sitting the other side of the room who was completely tripping on acid and didn't really think it was really happening. I just remember the silence after the gunshot, the ringing in my ears, and Chris going, "Don't go losing your head, Chris," and laughing to himself. That's when the drinking started. Between the ages of 18 and 24, I was a faithful alcoholic. A case of beer every morning and a half a bottle of vodka every day, like clockwork. I was a functioning alcoholic, a high-functioning one, too. I was always successful in my jobs. I was in management at Ames department stores. I was gigging full-time. I was Paul Stanley in a KISS cover band, drunk all the time. Held my liquor well, I guess. I used to walk around the department store, had a squeeze bottle, and that you couldn't see through, that was full of vodka all day long. Talking to customers while I'm sipping, Back then, the workplace was a little different than it is now. It was a little looser, There's a lot of alcoholics working there, and, whatever. Throughout that time, though, because I had been raised in the Lutheran church, not everybody in that church was bad, and I did get a background on who Jesus was, and I just got very comfortable following in my dad's footsteps, of thinking that Satanism and Christianity can coexist together inside of you, it's God, as long as I'm not killing anybody or, out hurting anybody, it's okay to be into dark stuff, It's okay to be sexually immoral and fill your body full of all kinds of drugs and do whatever you want, and, and somehow, and then go to church on Sunday, put on a robe, it's all, God's okay with all this, confusing. During that time, there were certain people that God put into my life that were really good witnesses for the truth, and their witnesses stuck with me. And as my alcoholism at 24 was really getting full-blown, I found myself on the doorsteps of a record deal with Columbia Records. And dating my ex-wife, Jamie. And one Saturday morning, I was about a week away from going to sign the contracts, had a lawyer, finally got a lawyer and everything. And she told me she was pregnant, and that's when my world stopped. And I had come to know the reality of who Jesus was through my involvement in satanic activity. Satan knows who God is. I was just much like Satan, because that's who I was following. I had this vain ambition that someday, regardless of what God says, we're going to win. The dark side's going to take over. But as I found myself confronted with the girl who I did love very much, holding my child, I looked at my life and just how much it sucked, and I thought, I can't carry this on. I can't pass this pain and confusion to another human being. I got to get it together, man. So that night after finding out, I knew God just made it very clear to me. It was like the heavens opened up and God said down, "I'm here, What are you going to do? What do you want to do with this situation?" I was like, "Well, I don't think Satan's going to make a very good dad, so maybe you could help me out here." I fell on my knees that night. I said, "Lord, whatever it takes, I'll stop doing what I'm doing. I will, I'll do whatever I have to do to get it together." So, didn't have any altar call, no programs, no nothing. I gave my life to the Lord that night and said, I didn't know what exactly that meant, but I knew I had to stop the substance abuse and everything, and I did cold turkey, quit everything. I did not ask my ex-wife to marry me. I just said to her, "We're going to get married." And she just said, "Okay." I loved her a little more than she loved me. She was kind of marrying me because she had no better options at the time. She was 18, She was raised by a religious zealot of a dad, and who was pretty out of his mind, Gary Pisarcik. He used to say that he was going to sit at the right hand of Jesus. It was God the Father, Jesus the Son, and Gary. We're going to be sitting on the thrones next to each other, judging the world. That was his philosophy. Violent man, abusive, crazy. You know, I go on bike rides with him around town because we were both avid cyclists, and he'd be yelling at people, taking your social security numbers, the mark of the beast. You're all going to hell. Dude, we're just trying to bike ride here, Gary. Come on, chill out, man. You're freaking me out. So, you know, at that point, I made a real conversion. I got rid of everything secular in my life, all the music, entertainment, everything, drugs, everything. I was like, I stopped playing my guitar for a year. And there I was at that point. Now that testimony, you know, while it may be interesting, there's a lot more to it. It's a testimony very similar to a lot of ours. Drugs, abuse, same old stuff. There's another testimony that I have, though, that maybe a lot of you don't share with me. I know a lot of people say, oh, I've known, you know, they're serious about the Lord now. We're in the program, you're getting serious about the Lord because it's what you're being absorbed by. It's all around, you know. And I hear oftentimes, you know, well, I've known the Lord since I was a kid. I just wasn't walking with him. Then you didn't know the Lord. Because you knew of the Lord, you knew some things about the Lord, but to know him is to love him. If you know who he truly is. I mean, if you say you know the Lord and you're not walking with him, well, that is basically the foundation for Satanism. It is. I was a Satanist, I know. I had a real conversion. That conversion lasted through 20 years of marriage and 3 more children. Very legalistic. I didn't watch a movie for 20 years. Didn't watch TV for 20 years. Never listened to secular music for 20 years. Didn't have a drop of alcohol. No cigarette. Nothing. Was home every night with my kids. Involved in everything they did. Blah, blah, blah. But as I got deeper into life, I'd become disillusioned. My wife, we had grown into a relationship where she was very abusive to me. She just wanted more and more and more, and I couldn't produce enough. You know, she was obsessed with money, and she had total control over the money. Every time I would do anything wrong, I would just get beat to tar because of her, but because of the kids and everything, I felt I had to stick with it, you know, and take it. And then one day, when she was beating on me, I couldn't take it anymore, and I made a decision that I do regret. I packed the bag while my kids were playing on the floor. I just looked at him, and I looked at her, and I said, okay, I'm going to live in my van now. She said, what? I said, goodbye. In other words, I just walked out the door. Still remember. My daughter called me up. She had a cell phone at the time. She was just a kid, begging me to come home. I was dead inside. I couldn't do it anymore. After a couple days of living in my van, I tried to go back home, but she wouldn't let me back in. And so started a 7-year bloody divorce. It took everything. I had to sit in court and listen to her make up stories about how I abused her. I mean, I never did. She told the judge that I abused the kids, and I never did. But they believed every word she said, and they just took everything. I couldn't handle it. Being publicly lied about. I had a very prominent business at the time. It was very known. My divorce became very public. Worked for a lot of rich people, and my name got around. What was going on? I never even told my wife anything negative, ever. Ever. She systematically took everything. Here I found out, before I left, we had been going to counseling for a year, and she'd been cleaning me out.
going to counseling as a distraction. Oh, she was cleaning the house, emptying out accounts. She had control over the money. I really didn't care about that kind of stuff. She got full custody of the kids. I was allowed visitation one night a week for 2 hours at her residence. Life got dark. It got dark. I ended up renting a room in a house. I just remember those days. She would show up at the jobs to still pick up the checks because I was still paying for everything for her. She was a stay-at-home mom. She'd show up with the kids while I was at the job, and the kids would all be crying and waving at me through the window, and she wouldn't let me see them. I had very expensive child support payments, $5,000 a month. I started to get sick. After I kept up with it for a few years. And then I was just getting kidney stones left and right and just getting sick. Physically ill, I fell behind, ended up going to jail, then started a cycle of jail and homelessness. Yeah, for 20 years, I never thought I'd start doing drugs again. I thought that stuff was way behind me. Turn with me to Luke 11. Luke 11:24. When an evil spirit leaves a person, it goes into the desert searching for rest. But when it finds none, it says, I will return to the person I came from. So it returns and finds that its former home is all swept and in order. Then the spirit finds 7 other spirits more evil than itself, and they all enter the person and live there. And so that person is worse off than before. That's what happened. While in jail, I discovered methamphetamines and drugs, and I went on a roller coaster ride for the past few years. Heavy meth use. And yes, I ended up worse than before when I was 24 and first got saved, way worse. Because now I had all this religious education, and somehow I thought I could, hang on to that, so I became like a Christian evangelist drug user. Now I'm in a real dangerous position because I'm like openly doing drugs, and I've convinced myself now that God's okay with it. And maybe the stuff I thought about God before wasn't okay, and I was out there evangelizing all kinds of crazy stuff. It was in a dangerous spot. But God is faithful. And he knows what I went through. And he had mercy on me. And through a series of circumstances, brought me here. Why am I telling you all this? Because you need to take this seriously. This is not, being here and your relationship with the Lord is not an alternative to drug use. It's an alternative to an eternity in hell. You're not here just to get really good at the program. You're supposed to obey the rules of the program that are leading you to a relationship with the Lord. I'm getting to see people. I'm at a point now where I've seen people come into the program and graduate. I've seen the change that can occur. And some people really get it. Eric, Nicole. I mean, when I'm down and out and low, and Nicole's always right there. Can I pray for you? What are you reading? What's the scripture? You know what I mean? It's not, hey, are you doing good at the program? No, because she gets it. The program leads you to something. Jim Bracken wanted people to come to Christ. So it's not about, Aaron really touched me the other day with his testimony when he said, it's not about just getting to the next level. And what am I going to get out of this level now? Or what am I going to... No, it's about waking up every day and making your body a living sacrifice to the Lord Jesus Christ and forgetting everything else and letting him dictate where your steps are going to go and when it's time to move to the next step. It's not about worrying about what's going on in your outside world and worrying about what you're getting back to or making your plans for what you're going to get onto and then trying to add God to that. No. When he called the disciples, they didn't say, oh, yeah, we'll follow him for a little while, but we're going to get back to our fishing and stuff. We're going to do. No, they dropped their nets and followed him. Drop your nets. Follow him. That's what this is all about. I love you guys.